Config. Wow, lots of people. Thanks for coming to see us talk. This is awesome. So I'm Diana. I'm the head of design at GitHub.
And I'm Cole. I am a staff research engineer on the GitHub Next team.
So today we're going to talk to you, well, actually show you how we use GitHub to go from design to code. So there's not really just like one way to go from design to code. There's no one correct process that will work for everyone in every situation. It often depends on the constraints of the project, the skills of the particular designers and developers that are working on it, and also it might depend on your particular company process. So the lines between design and code often get blurry. And people might have some overlap in skills. They might be a designer that codes or an engineer that can do some design. For example, Cole is an engineer and also a pretty fantastic designer. Before he joined GitHub, he designed a pretty popular icon system called Feather Icons. Maybe some of you have heard it or used it. And when he was interning at GitHub, we noticed these amazing hybrid skills that he had, and hired him to actually help us redesign our icon system, Octacons. We then hired him as a design systems engineer, and then he went on to join GitHub Next, which is our research and development team, which really makes use of those hybrid skills. I started off as a graphic designer in a print studio. I had always been interested in some of those technical skills as well, and interested in computers and IT. And I'd learned a little bit of programming at college, and I found myself working on some internal tools at the print center. One of the first UIs that I ever designed, I also built using Visual Basic for Applications, which I'm not sure if many of you know, but it's created by Microsoft to help you create graphical user interfaces for things like Microsoft Access databases. And I'd made this database, and I knew that no one knew how to really use that particular software, so I created this nice, friendly UI with big buttons and forms and things like that. And that sparked my interest in the digital side of design and led me to the web and learning a bit of front end and CSS and HTML and some JavaScript. And that kind of set my path. And then I found myself in design systems, which is, I think, a really core place where design meets code, right? It's what's meant to help create that sort of shared language between designers and developers. So both Cole and I have been worked on design systems and have been trying to find ways to keep closing that gap between design and code for quite a few years in many different ways. And it was really exciting today to see some of the features that Figma have launched that are also really starting to close that gap. But even when designers and developers kind of stay in their lane, the process of taking design to implementation is often not really a linear path like this squiggly line behind me. And we often spend time in each other's tools. You may have heard the phrase, it's not the paintbrush, it's the painter. And that might be fair. However, getting an idea out of your head into something that other people can see is a really important thing to be able to do, and to do with some speed and to do with accuracy. And learning your tools better helps you get those better results faster and a better quality. So instead of walking through a single design to code example, Cole's going to demo a variety of GitHub features that we use at GitHub, most of which are quite new or in development, so you might have not seen them yet. And along the way, we'll explain how these tools might fit into your design process. And hopefully you'll come away with some new tools in your toolbox. So over to Cole.
All right. Thank you, Diana. So let's dive right into it. Like Diana mentioned, this is going to be kind of a whirlwind tour of a lot of different GitHub features and showing how they might fit into your design to code workflow. We're intentionally not going to go super deep into any one of these tools, but if you're interested in more details, come find us after the talk. We'd be happy to talk more about any of these demos. We also have a GitHub booth over there. Feel free to stop by, and you'll find someone who wants to talk about these features with you. OK, so the first stop on our tour is GitHub Spark. GitHub Spark is a technical preview right now that's built by the GitHub Next team, which is a small research and development team inside of GitHub. It happens to be the team that I work on. And GitHub Spark is an AI app builder. It allows you to describe an app in natural language, and it'll use AI to build that app for you. You've probably seen some products like this, maybe Figma Make. We saw that at the keynote. So you're familiar with this general concept of an AI app builder. What I want to demo today is how you might use a tool like this, which is really helpful for generating entire apps from scratch. But where does that fit into your workflow if you're designing a feature for an existing product, which I'm sure a lot of you are? So for this demo, let's imagine that we're working on a to-do list app. And I have this idea for a feature. I think that we should use AI to allow people to break down larger tasks into smaller subtasks. So you might have a to-do list item that's remodel the kitchen, which is a big kind of hairy task. And then we can use AI to break that into smaller, more achievable tasks. In this kind of early, ambiguous, I have an idea, I'm not quite sure how to approach it, this is when the non-determinism of AI, I think, actually is a really powerful exploration feature. Let me show you what I mean by that. So I have GitHub Spark open here. I'm going to paste in a description of the feature that we want to build. I'm telling it to make a to-do list with an intuitive design, which is intentionally pretty ambiguous, that allows users to break tasks into smaller subtasks using AI. And as I said, AI is non-deterministic. So if I give it the same input and run it multiple times, I'm going to get different outputs. This is sometimes not ideal if you're doing a live demo. But it's actually super helpful if you want to experiment and find the different design possibilities. GitHub Spark makes this super easy. So once I've typed in my prompt, I also have the option to choose a different model to run. And this is another way to find different design options. But what I want to highlight is this variance toggle, which will basically run our prompt multiple times, in this case 3 times, and give us 3 different apps with slightly different design directions. And then we can compare the results and figure out which direction we like the best. OK, I have that variant toggle on. I'm going to hit go. AI is going to start compiling creative thoughts. As you see, it's loading up 3 different apps for us and streaming the results in. We're actually asking it to do kind of a lot of work, so I'm going to pull some cooking show magic and just flip to the end. This is a same generation I did a little bit earlier. And you can see that Spark has given us 3 different options for our to-do list feature. One thing I want to highlight is that apps in Spark have access to LLMs, which makes them really nice for prototyping features like this one that use AI. So not only did it mock up this button for generate subtasks, if I click this, it's actually going to use AI to break down that subtask into smaller, more achievable tasks. And I can click down here and check out each of these different options that it gave us. This one, it seemed to like to use a brain icon for breakdown task. That's interesting. Maybe we want to go that direction. But from here, you can evaluate what it gave you and use Spark to continue iterating on your idea, maybe continue generating variations until you want to start converging on one direction that you like. Another thing I want to quickly highlight here I mentioned that it's using AI to generate those subtasks. We do a nice thing here where we're actually pulling out the prompt that the app is using to generate those subtasks. So you have some transparency, and you can actually edit the prompt and try something different, which is actually what I'm going to talk about next. So the next stop on our tour is GitHub Models, specifically the GitHub Models Playground. Now, this might be kind of an unusual choice to highlight at a design conference, but bear with me. I think that as products increasingly integrate AI, more and more of the user experience is going to be determined by AI behavior. So for example, if you're building an AI meeting notes app, whether I have a good or bad experience with your app is going to be determined by the quality of the AI-generated meeting notes, right? So as a designer, we can't just hand wave over these AI features and expect the user to have a good experience. We need to be specific about what these features should do, which is why I think designers should be writing prompts, and I think they should have a good understanding of the different models that are available and their capabilities. It just so happens that GitHub Models is a great place to learn about these different models and try out different prompts. So I'm going to, for this demo, we're going to try GPT 4.1, and we'll compare it to OpenAI's O3 model. You can see we have these two chat interfaces side by side. I'm going to copy the prompt that Spark gave us. Paste that in, replace this placeholder with maybe plan vacation. And then you can see that as I'm typing in one input box, it's mirrored on the other side, so we can send the same prompt to the different models and compare the results side by side. There's even this button right here that allows you to improve your prompt. If you click this, you can provide feedback of what you think might be better and have Copilot improve your prompt for you. We're going to skip that for now, and I'm going to go ahead and just send this prompt. We can see that GPT 4.1 came back pretty quickly with results. O3 took a little bit longer. I happen to know that O3 is a reasoning model, which means that it's thinking about its answer before responding to you, which takes a little bit longer. And in this case, it didn't seem to have a huge impact on the results. Both of these lists look pretty reasonable as a breakdown for plan a vacation. So in this case, we're getting a sense for these different models, how they apply to our specific use case. And in our case, 4.1 is probably better for us. And transparently, there's a lot more that goes into writing a good prompt and choosing the right model, especially for production-grade AI applications. But I think this starts to give you a good sense for the material you're working with when you're designing for AI. And I think a lot more designers should be involved in writing the first draft of the prompts as a way to kind of smooth the transition between design to code and ensure that the idea in your head matches the end user experience they have with your AI feature. OK, that was GitHub Models. Let's move to the next stop on our tour, Copilot Agent Mode. So all of the demos I've showed you have been kind of isolated from the actual code base. In Spark, we made a prototype that was kind of just the feature that we were working on to test different directions. In GitHub Models, we were just working on the prompt. But if you're a designer who's comfortable in the code editor, using something like Copilot Agent Mode and prototyping directly in the code base might make sense for your workflow. So Copilot Agent Mode lives in VS Code. It's in this Copilot sidebar. And you can use it similar to how we were prompting Spark earlier. We can just tell it what feature we want to build, and then Copilot Agent Mode can use tools and context in our actual code base to build that feature for us. It's running in a loop, so it can edit multiple files. It can read syntax errors, linting errors, and correct them as it works to implement your feature. Now, whether you choose to prototype in VS Code with Copilot agent mode, or you want to build an isolated prototype with something like Spark, it really depends on your project and your preferences. But the idea here is we just want to show you the tools that are available to you so you can make an informed decision when you're working on your project. So that's Copilot agent mode. Let's switch back into GitHub. And I have one more thing to show you. So let's pretend that we've finished building our feature. And before we launch it, I've gone through and just made some notes about bugs and polished items that I want to fix. Usually, to take action on this feedback, I would probably create issues for these individually, which can be really tedious. But with Copilot, we can copy our notes. And here I've asked it to turn all of these into individual issues in our repo. And then we can watch as Copilot drafts all of these issues. It breaks it into logical chunks and makes it easier for us to review and create. I think we all know that the design to code process can involve a lot of busy work like this that's important for visibility and tracking progress, but is not necessarily the thing that we want to be spending our time on. So we can let Copilot do that for us. So we can click here, see all of the issues that it drafted for us. Now, before we finish, I want to hand it over to Diana to show a sneak peek of something we're working on that we're very excited about.
Yeah, so often we're working in an existing code base or an existing website or application, and sometimes we might have a task where we are redesigning a whole page from scratch or adding a completely new view. And in those scenarios, that's when it works to start with perhaps a design file rather than starting in the code itself. So what we've been exploring here with Figma is being able to paste in any Figma URL into Copilot. It's then taking context from that design file, building that in code, and then you can, because you're in Copilot, you can preview that, and then you can keep iterating on that code in Copilot. We know that AI doesn't always get the design quite right yet. We noticed like the buttons were missing on this one, and so you might want to iterate and fix things, or actually add, continue on in the design. At GitHub, we're also big fans of connecting our design to our code. We use Code Connect to connect our design system components to our code versions of our components. And so we're also looking at how can Copilot detect those design system components to get that end result much more accurate and much closer to being production ready. So also, if you do want to learn more about Code Connect and how we use that at GitHub, please check out two of our friends from GitHub, Katie Langerman and Lucas, who are speaking tomorrow on the mezzanine stage at 2:10 p.m. But yeah, I think like we're really excited about this stuff, and with advancements in technologies, particularly with AI, we can see that getting better and better. For example, some of you might have heard of MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. And that basically gives us the opportunity, once we've developed that, to have a better handshake with the Figma API and the GitHub API and get a much more accurate result that is closer to your design. So stay tuned. We're really excited about where this can go, and we are working on releasing that very soon. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So I want to do a quick recap of what we just covered. That was a whirlwind tour through some features there. So with Spark, you saw that you can experiment and explore and prototype out ideas, take advantage of AI being non-deterministic, and get from like 0 to 1 faster. And with GitHub models, with more of us starting to work with AI, you can explore what the impact of a model might be on the end user experience and figure out what's the better solution for you, getting closer to that material and understanding it better. With agent mode, that works in your existing ecosystem. So if you are comfortable with hopping into a code editor, that could be a really good option for you. It might help you get further and do things that you might not fully know how to do with codes. And then with Copilot Immersive, we all know that we have to plan and track projects, be friends with our PM partners, and so that can help you do some of your busy work for you, so you can spend more time on the creative design work and getting a great user experience. And then you got a glimpse of what we're working on next in the future. We're really excited about just continuing to close that design and code gap. So I'm hopeful that we've given you a few more tools for your toolbox, and we're just really excited to show you some of these. And I forgot to click through all the list of things, sorry. So thank you so much for having us. Like I said, come and say hi to us if you want to see, hear more. And also we have a GitHub booth somewhere that way, I think, so you can talk to more hubbers there. Thank you so much.